My name is Sarah Johnson. I'm turning 40 this year. I married a man who had a son from a previous marriage. The stepson is now 19 years old. I've been living with him for about 5 years now, but he just doesn't warm up to me. A year ago, my husband and I were involved in an accident while we were out, and my husband passed away. I was left with after effects from the accident, and now I live my life in a wheelchair as I was getting used to life in a wheelchair. My stepson Kenny decided to go on a long trip with his friends. Just before he left, he suddenly threw me in my wheelchair onto the 30th floor balcony. He said stepmother freeze to death and go to the other world, closed the window and left for his trip. I couldn't understand what had happened at first. Just a few minutes before, I was relaxing and watching TV in the living room, and suddenly I was pushed onto the balcony in my wheelchair, unable to resist. I kept asking Kenny, "What are you doing? Where are you taking me?" But he ignored me and threw me onto the balcony. It was early December and it was very cold outside. Moreover, I was only in my house clothes, so it felt even colder. Once thrown onto the balcony, I couldn't stand up on my own. I shouted help, help several times, but Kenny ignored me and left for his trip, living on the 30th floor of a high-rise. My cries for help couldn't reach anyone outside. Besides, it being December, there were hardly any people out on their balconies. All I could do was hope that miraculously, someone from a neighboring apartment or from a floor above or below would come out onto their balcony. However, the apartments are spaced well apart, so even if someone were on their balcony, they might not hear me. Lying there in my wheelchair, unable to raise my voice much, I thought this might be the end for me and wondered how things had come to this. I thought about my life and how it wasn't supposed to be like this, and tears naturally started to flow. Before meeting my husband, I was enjoying my single life living alone. I was good at household chores and cooking, but I didn't have much desire to marry until I was past 30. I had more fun hanging out with friends and enjoyed my job, so I wasn't that interested in romance or marriage. However, as my friends started getting married and having children, I found myself growing apart from them. Even though I didn't have a strong desire to marry, I started feeling lonely and began to want a partner. That's when I met my husband. I met him while having a drink alone at a bar. He happened to sit next to me and we hit it off. He was divorced and had been raising Kenny on his own as a single father. I admired how he had already experienced marriage and was raising a child by himself at our age. While running his own business, he managed to balance work and parenting. He would humbly say it wasn't a big deal because he had the help of his parents at his in-laws' house. I loved that modest side of him. He told me he got divorced just before Kenny started elementary school. I didn't ask for details, but apparently his ex-wife left almost like eloping and he ended up raising Kenny without any custody battle. Kenny had often expressed a desire to see his mother, but he never got the chance. His father always said that his ex-wife was unfit to be a mother and didn't want Kenny to see her. Maybe he didn't want Kenny to go to her if he asked, probably because it would make him feel lonely. I thought that was the real reason he was so adamant about not letting Kenny see his ex-wife. When I remarried my husband, Kenny was right in the midst of his adolescence. Despite his constant wishes to see his mom, he was introduced to a new mother, me, and he was very cold and didn't accept me. I didn't expect to be accepted right away, and at first I didn't mind and focused on housework and cooking. I quit my job to be a full-time homemaker, supporting my husband and raising Kenny. That was my job and I worked hard at it. I asked my husband about Kenny's favorites and tried to make things he liked, hoping to get accepted by him sooner. But he didn't warm up to me, and it was disheartening. Even after years, he never warmed up to me, and my heart broke many times. "You went into my room without permission. Don't ever come in again. Make sure to iron my uniform shirt properly. Don't talk to me so familiarly, fake mom." These harsh words had become a part of my daily life. I tried to convince myself it was just his rebellious phase, but there were days when I ended up crying alone. My husband would always scold Kenny firmly for such behavior and comforted me each time I was mistreated. He was a kind and appreciative husband, thanking me every day for marrying him and taking on the role of a full-time homemaker, especially since we had a child. But then my husband died in an accident, leaving just Kenny and me behind. Kenny couldn't forgive that I was the only one who survived the accident. At the funeral, he caused a scene yelling "It's her fault Dad died." From there, his disdain for me became even more apparent. Before, despite his rebelliousness and harsh words, we still had conversations, occasionally ate together, and even went out as a family, albeit rarely. But after the accident, he mostly ignored me at home. He didn't want to eat with me, so I would prepare meals and take them to his room. After graduating high school, he became a part-timer. He doesn't contribute financially to the household, and sometimes he would ask for money for his leisure, which was the only time we talked. A normal parent might say things like "I can't give you so much money" or "You should contribute some of your earnings to the household," but I couldn't say those things for fear of being disliked even more. For a while after the accident, my in-laws and my parents took turns coming over to help take care of me. Thanks to the high-rise condo and inheritance my husband left behind, I could live without working, and I even had enough to remodel the apartment for my wheelchair. I got used to the wheelchair and managing most things on my own, which meant less frequent visits from my parents and in-laws. And then, just when things seemed to be getting on track, Kenny threw me onto the balcony. I had no visitors scheduled for the next few days and my phone was inside the house, so I had almost given up hope of being rescued when suddenly the balcony door opened and I heard my mother's voice. "Are you okay? What happened?" I was so relieved that I burst into tears. She had come because she thought it was strange that I wasn't answering her calls. I explained to her that Kenny had thrown me out onto the balcony. Maybe he thought he'd get the inheritance if I was gone, or maybe he just wanted to live with his real mother. Or perhaps he just found me annoying. I don't know, but my son nearly killed me. My mother was shocked when she heard this, but she seemed to have an idea and made a suggestion. When Kenny returned from his trip 9 days later, he noticed how unusually clean the house was. He felt something was off and went to check the balcony. But I wasn't there. Kenny probably thought I had died. He was stunned for a while, realizing that all my belongings were gone from the house. I decided to move to my childhood home, following my mother's suggestion. "You can't live here anymore. We don't know what might happen next. Just come to our house. You've been living in this high-rise, struggling with your wheelchair life just to be with Kenny, right? But if Kenny says he doesn't need you, then you don't have to hesitate to come back to us. We are here for you," my mother said, and I cried again, feeling relieved. Kenny had always talked about wanting to live with his real mother and my husband was worried about it. He had even said if something happens to me, it's okay to leave Kenny with his real mother by that time. Kenny was already over 18, so even if his real mother had neglected him, he would survive. And my husband wanted me to prioritize Kenny's wishes to meet his mother. I had talked about this with my mother before, so she suggested that we let his real mother take care of him. "Why don't you fulfill Kenny's wish to see his real mom? Your husband was adamant about not letting him meet her, and maybe you're carrying too much burden by yourself, thinking you have to do the same and keep living with Kenny." I was surprised at how accurately she hit the mark. "How did you know what I was feeling?" "Well, I'm your mother. I had always thought you were reluctant to contact his real mother. Your husband had already said it was okay to let him meet her, but for some reason, you continued living with Kenny. So I thought maybe you were being stubborn. But what Kenny did this time is beyond a rebellious phase. It's inexcusable. I can't stay silent after he put my precious daughter through such an ordeal. I think it's time to grant Kenny's wish and let you live your life happily. Even if his real mother was the worst, if Kenny happily goes to her, I'm okay with that." Encouraged by my mother, I made up my mind and contacted Kenny's real mother to take care of him. His real mother seemed very happy to have Kenny come home. I conveyed this to Kenny over the phone and he seemed pleased. I gave him his real mother's new name, address, and phone number. I'm glad you get to go to your real mom's. I'm going to sell the high-rise, okay? I said. I don't have to live with the fake mom anymore. Do whatever you want. By the way, you're still alive. I don't think we'll ever meet again, but take care. Kenny said before hanging up. There was no apology in the end, but I felt so relieved knowing I wouldn't have to meet Kenny again. I think I got used to the sarcasm and harsh treatment, being treated almost like a servant for about 5 years living with Kenny. So it didn't hurt anymore, but now that I don't have to see him again, it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. My body and mind feel lighter. It's been years since I felt this exhilarated. I'm glad I contacted his real mom. Thank you so much, Mom. Sarah, you've been so down. I was really worried and wanted you to come back home, but you were trying so hard for Kenny. I couldn't bring it up. Let's live happily together from now on. I was excited at the thought of being able to do what I love and live my life. Marrying my husband wasn't a mistake, but I think experiencing marriage once is enough for me. I decided to enjoy my single life again and lifted my ban on alcohol. When Kenny was here, I thought I might need to take him to the hospital if he suddenly got sick, so I didn't drink. This is the best drink I've had in a long time. You really did a great job as a mother for Kenny. I'm proud of you. I was embarrassed but happy to be praised by my mother. I realized that Kenny had been the center of my life without me noticing. I never got called mom, but I might have given him more love than a real son. Thinking back on being thrown onto the balcony, it was indeed tough, but now I enjoyed my first drink in a long time. About a month into my life at my parents' house, I received a call from Kenny. Hey, I want to come back. What happened? You finally got to meet the mother you've always wanted to see. Kenny called to say he wanted to come back, even though not much time had passed. When I asked about the situation, it turned out his biological mother was worse than he had imagined. I was relieved after talking to her on the phone. She seemed like a bright and kind person, but she had a reason for welcoming Kenny so warmly. She knew from our phone conversation that my husband had passed away, so she assumed Kenny might have inherited something. That's why she welcomed him, eyeing the inheritance. Unaware of this, Kenny was initially happy to reunite with his mother, but he soon realized she was only interested in money. She talked about nothing but money, showing no joy in their reunion. After living there for a few days, he understood that she had welcomed him just for his inheritance. Her husband didn't hold a job for long, and their savings were almost gone. They already had 3 kids, and their household was struggling financially. Now with Kenny, there were 6 of them. You're staying here, so you should give us the inheritance you got. His mother and her husband told him, and within a few days they took almost all of his inheritance. Kenny initially thought it was fair to give them the inheritance since he was staying with them. However, he was completely out of his element living there and found it hard to adjust. When Kenny lived with me, I always made sure to prepare his favorite dishes and balanced meals. But at his mother's, they mostly ate ramen noodles. The kids were used to it and happily ate them. But for Kenny, who was used to a well-rounded meal, this was a shock. Their idea of eating out was mostly junk food, not restaurants. The nutrition was highly unbalanced and he started feeling unwell after just a few days. I realized that you were always careful about nutritional balance. I used to just eat whatever I wanted with my friends, not thinking about vegetables or anything. But now, living like this, I understand how lucky I was to have someone care about my diet. The kids who are used to this lifestyle seem fine, but it's definitely not good for their health and I think it'll catch up with them eventually. I had never been to a supermarket before, but feeling a crisis for my health, I went to buy vegetables for the first time. I even tried cooking. I did it secretly because if my mom saw me, she'd probably expect me to cook from now on. But I couldn't make anything nearly as delicious as your cooking. I tried to feed it to the kids, but they're not used to eating vegetables and refused to eat it at all. Being rejected even before they tried my cooking was really tough, Kenny shared. When we were living together, it was common for Kenny to eat out without telling me and then say he didn't need dinner. I would just have his portion for my lunch the next day. But it seems like he's finally realized how hard that was for me. And I'm glad to see he's grown a bit. I finally understood how hard it is to plan meals and go grocery shopping. It's tough to make even one dish, let alone several. And I appreciated how amazing it was that I did that for me, someone who's not even your biological son. How could you do all that? Now I realize how incredible what you did was. Why did I do it? Well, even though you always called me a fake mom, to me, you were my real son. It's natural for a mother to care about her son's health and make him proper meals. I spoke my mind. Kenny seemed very emotional and started crying over the phone. After a while, he continued talking. I had thought our relationship was over, but I couldn't help listening to him, especially since he sounded so distressed. Now they're even asking for my part-time earnings. I work 5 days a week, but my wage isn't high and after taxes there's not much left. I told them that, but they said we're a family, we should help each other out during tough times. And now most of my earnings go to them. I hardly have any money left and I can't hang out with my friends like before. But you gave them all your inheritance, right? That was a significant amount. They shouldn't need any more money from you. I think they're saving it somewhere, but they keep saying they have no money. Both of them work so they can't be that broke. If they're just eating ramen noodles, they shouldn't be spending that much, right? Why are they taking so much money from you? I don't know, but those two drink a lot. They feed the kids ramen noodles but buy lots of snacks for themselves to drink every night. They seem to be having a great time. When they both have a day off, they leave the kids with me and go to the casino all day. They say they mostly win, so they're not losing money. But I think they're actually spending a lot there. I once said they could save money if they stopped gambling and drinking. They got really angry and hit me. They were drunk and didn't hold back. It hurt a lot. I had never been hit by anyone before, so it was tough. Kenny had been abused by his mother and her husband. But what you said wasn't wrong, right? Why should you be hit for that? They say they need gambling and drinking to deal with the stress of daily work. Even if they stop, those living costs money, so they say I should contribute my earnings. They tell me I don't understand because I'm just a kid and that I should earn money and contribute to the family. Listening to Kenny's story was disheartening. It's sad to see a child having to sacrifice so much. The problems didn't stop there. Since Kenny arrived, his mother and her husband started going to the casino more often, leaving him to take care of the 3 younger kids. He struggled with the kids jumping on him, doodling on his belongings and having to break up their fights. Kenny, who had been spoiled as an only child, was experiencing not getting his way for the first time. Among the 3 children at his biological mother's home, one of them didn't warm up to Kenny at all. They ignored him when he talked and would snap at him, saying things like "Get out of here, you make it too crowded." Kenny realized just how hurtful such behavior could be, as he had treated me the same way before. Every time I see that kid who won't warm up to me, I feel like I'm looking at myself. Being ignored hurts more than I expected, Dad. And you never ignored me. No matter how rebellious I was, you always faced me and prioritized my feelings. I've only now come to appreciate that. Kenny said, sounding completely changed and remorseful. It's only been about a month, right? I went through 5 years of you not warming up to me, and it was extremely hard. Toward the end, we hardly even talked. Living with someone like that was really tough. Not to mention I was struggling physically with my paralysis and mentally with the loss of your father. Being constantly told to bring Dad back was almost too much for me. I shared these thoughts with Kenny, remembering the past. I'm really sorry. I finally understand how awful I was. Please let me have another chance. But I simply asked, is that all the complaints about your current home? I was already fed up with hearing about his troubles at his biological mother's house, but Kenny insisted he had more to share. It's not just that my mom never cleans the house, so it's always dusty and suffocating. I never did any cleaning when I lived with you. But now I've developed a rash-like allergy from the dust and house mites, so I started doing all the house cleaning. I wish my mom would do it, but she says it's only my problem since I'm the one with the rash and I'm sleeping in the same room with the 3 kids. They snore and move a lot, so I haven't been sleeping well. I'm used to a quiet private space and it's been really tough every day. I just want to escape this life. Kenny sounded extremely distressed by his current living situation. My late husband knew his ex-wife was like this and didn't want Kenny to meet her. I always thought he didn't want Kenny to be taken away and accused him of that once. But then he told me how terrible she was. They had a shotgun wedding and never lived together before marriage. After getting married and having Kenny, my husband realized she never did any housework. My husband's business was starting to take off and he was extremely busy with work. Despite this, when he came home, he took care of all the household chores and looked after Kenny, which meant he hardly got any sleep during the day. My in-laws, concerned about Kenny, would come to check on him. Despite being a full-time housewife, his ex-wife hardly took care of him and was reckless with money. Stressed about not being able to go to the casino after the birth of their child, she went on a shopping spree with my husband's money. I had heard all this from my husband, so after he passed away, I tried my best to raise Kenny on my own. But I found out that Kenny had come to resent me to the extent of trying to kill me. My mother suggested, since it was Kenny's wish, that I should let him go. So I decided to distance myself from Kenny. I never knew my real mother was such a terrible person. I want to escape this life and come back home. Kenny seemed to think it was natural for me to welcome him back. Where will you go back to? I told you to do whatever you want, so our house is no longer available. What? You said to do whatever I want, right? And after being thrown off the balcony and left there, I can't live with you anymore. I'm really sorry about that time. Kenny had been angry at me all this time for supposedly ruining the chance for his father and ex-wife to reconcile. I was so wrong. I realize now how much I took things for granted. I'm truly sorry, please forgive me, I forgive you. I understand you've reflected, but there's no home for us to live together anymore and you're 19 and an adult now, so please feel free to live your life. I said that and hung up the phone. Kenny decided to live on his own, escaping from his mother's home, his mother and her husband realizing they would be in trouble without Kenny helping with the house and contributing money. Tried hard to stop him from leaving. You should only have one home right here. Let's live together. They sweet-talked him, but Kenny, feeling he would go insane if he continued living there, firmly left. However, with my husband's inheritance gone, he couldn't afford a luxurious lifestyle anymore. He had to transition from a wealthy life in a high-rise to a life of poverty. Realizing how privileged his previous life had been. The mother he had longed to meet turned out to be toxic. And Kenny was shocked by this revelation. Even after leaving her home, she frequently called him asking for money. I explained everything to my in-laws, including being thrown off the balcony and letting Kenny meet his biological mother. They reflected on having spoiled their grandson too much and apologized to me. Deciding that Kenny needed to learn the hardships of life, they chose to quietly watch over him without intervening. As for me, I'm living a happy life at my parents' house, relieved from the responsibilities of. I married John, a single father. One day, his daughter, Jessica, brought home her fiancé. I've been to friends' weddings several times, but the idea of attending as a mother feels like a dream come true. Lost in thought, Jessica burst out laughing. What are you thinking? You're not my real mom, just an outsider. So you're not invited to the wedding? Jessica wore a spiteful smirk. Pretty audacious, huh? You're just the maid and the ATM. My real mom is the only mom for me. My joy quickly faded. So you're inviting your real mom, huh? Of course, she's family. So please don't show that ugly face of yours. It'd be embarrassing. Got it. Memories of all the harsh words I'd received from Jessica over the years came flooding back. For over a decade, I tried to close the distance between us, often crying behind the scenes and raising her with all my heart. Yet this is how she repays me. Fine, if that's how you feel, I won't hold back. Be prepared on the wedding day. My name is Barbara, a 55-year-old housewife. I've been working as an employee at the company I joined right out of college, handling overtime and even business trips. However, being so engrossed in my job, I struggled to maintain relationships. Some found it odd thinking I prioritized work over romance, and others held the outdated belief that a woman should settle down and focus on family, causing me to miss out on marrying. That's when John, from a regional branch, which could be likened to a place in Nebraska, came into the picture. John, having divorced 3 years earlier, was raising his young daughter, Jessica, as a single father. He had been promoted after successfully completing a major project, but he struggled with managing his workload. However, I was drawn to his genuine and honest nature, and as a team leader, I often had his back. A few months later, he confessed his feelings for me over dinner, which was quite a surprise. After all, I was 5 years older than him and not great at romance. Looking flustered, John told me I thought I was done with marriage, but getting to know you, Barbara, I realized I really want you by my side. Thank you, it means a lot. But how does your daughter feel about this? Jessica gave me the green light. She told me not to hesitate and that it's okay to bring a new mom into our lives. So in addition to our dates, we spent time together with Jessica. We visited places like aquariums and theme parks, getting to know each other. The following year we tied the knot. Nice to meet you, Barbara. With an innocent smile, I felt on top of the world. Having given up on marriage and having kids, I never thought I'd become a mother to such a lovely girl. At that time, I was completely unaware of Jessica's personality. Hidden behind her smile, Jessica looked like a child model, so darn cute. Her refined features didn't much resemble kind-hearted John and seemed to take after her mother who had divorced. However, whether she inherited her personality from her mother or was spoiled growing up, once we started living together, Jessica quickly revealed her malicious true nature. One minute she'd be in a good mood. The next, she'd be upset over the smallest thing. If things didn't go her way, she wouldn't hesitate to complain without considering the feelings of others and would easily lie. For instance, in 5th grade there was a field trip, so I woke up early to prepare a packed lunch. After getting married, John switched to a part-time job and we divided the housework. While I can cook, planning meals isn't my strong suit. I left the cleaning, shopping, and cooking to John while I took care of the laundry, ironing, and managed our finances. That time I took a recipe from John and excitedly packed her favorite meatballs and potato salad. Yet when she returned, the lunchbox was untouched. Jessica, were you not feeling well? When I asked out of concern, Jessica retorted with a bored expression. I left it because it was gross. Isn't that obvious? John, standing next to her, turned pale. Jessica, Barbara came home at 10 p.m. last night and woke up at 5 a.m. to make that for you. Don't you feel grateful at all, huh? I don't care. Normally you do all the chores. Dad, don't act all motherly now. She lifted her chin defiantly and stormed off to her room. I forced a smile and apologized to John. She's in full-blown teenage rebellion. She probably feels like I've stolen her dad away. As she entered middle school, Jessica's attitude worsened. I had half a day off and came for a school visit. Jessica, did you forget your handkerchief? I asked as class ended. She glared at me with fierce eyes and snatched the handkerchief from my hands. That's Jessica's mom, you two don't look much alike, to her friend's comment. Jessica grimaced. That old lady isn't my mother, my real mom is way prettier. She said and continued. Right, Jessica's family had a stepmom situation, my dad got charmed by his older boss. Pretending to be my mom is super annoying. Hey, that's a bit much. Poor your mom. Her friends laughed as Jessica quickly left the scene. But that wasn't the end. When she got home, she lashed out at me. Why did you come? It's so embarrassing. Stop it. I'm sorry I had the day off and wanted to see you study hard in class. I hate being mistaken for having you as my mother. Realize how pathetic you look. Her words pathetic left me in shock. Sure, I'm in my 50s and have average looks compared to some beautiful moms out there. I might not measure up, but to have someone say that to me? Even after that, when I got home from work, I tried listening to Jessica's favorite pop songs, watched cartoons, and made an effort to find common topics to talk about. At dinner, I'd bring up those topics, but instead of getting closer to Jessica, I felt the distance between us growing. John sensed the tension between us even without me mentioning it, and he was concerned. She probably talks about you behind your back when I'm not around. Huh? I'm really sorry. It's okay, I guess it's the same in every family. I said that to put John at ease. According to my friends with kids, these rebellious phases usually calm down once they hit high school. I kept telling myself to just endure this for a few more years. Whether Jessica would shout hurtful words, throw away the food I made right in front of me, or even throw and break her favorite plate against the wall, I held back my emotions and just endured it. After Jessica started high school, her terrible attitude towards me faded as if she had been telling me lies. She still wasn't very affectionate, but at least she'd respond when spoken to, and the hurtful outbursts nearly stopped. But then strange things began happening. I usually use electronic payments for my daily shopping, but as a backup, I always keep $300 in my wallet. But then I noticed it would decrease by $100. At first I thought I was mistaken, but when I checked my budgeting app, sure enough, $3,400 was missing every month. John, did you take my money? He looked surprised when I asked if I borrowed it. I'd tell you right away. Yeah, I know. Sorry for asking, which meant the only culprit could be Jessica. Jessica, at her own request, had a part-time job and was managing her expenses from that income. After some time, not only cash but my credit card started getting used without my knowledge as well. Suddenly, on the card statement where I usually see my apartment rent and utility bills, names of clothing brands and bags started showing up. The card and its PIN were stored in a drawer in our chest, so any family member could access it. When I brought this up with John, who is usually calm, seemed distressed and said, "What the heck is she doing? Let's wait before getting angry. Jessica's 17. I want her to come clean on her own." If you say so, Barbara. Maybe we should wait and see a bit longer. John reluctantly agreed with a glum face. After graduating from college, Jessica quit her job after just one day and spent her time at home. Working part-time, 3 days a week. Does she think I haven't noticed? The money in my wallet keeps decreasing and the credit card statements just keep piling up. It's not just about the money. I had other things on my mind. Despite having the most free time in the family, Jessica doesn't do any household chores at all. Being away frequently on business trips and working full-time, I tend to rely on John, who works shorter hours still while he handles the laundry, ironing, and other minor tasks. Jessica, who works only 3 days a week, won't even wash her used coffee mugs. Loves going shopping even when asked, and spends her weekends playing video games or going out and enjoying herself. One day, as I was thinking of saying something, Jessica hesitantly broached a topic during dinner. "I have someone I want to introduce you to," she said. Neither John nor I saw this coming when we met Charles, who came over to say hello. He was a refreshing, polite and well-mannered young man in our living room, sitting upright. Charles, clearly nervous, began to share how he met Jessica. I first saw Jessica at the reception desk of the hospital. She gave me such a warm smile when I was feeling so weak from a fever. It seemed like Charles was head over heels for Jessica. She was kind to all the patients and she looked so radiant. Jessica's part-time job is at a hospital located in an affluent neighborhood. Most patients are wealthy, so it's quite evident she's working there looking for a potential match. She once mentioned she preferred part-time over full-time because she didn't want to commute daily. Charles's family owns a business and he's apparently a manager at his parents' company, having caught the eye of a wealthy heir just 6 months into working. Everything seems to be going according to Jessica's plan. We've already set a date for the wedding, Jessica said excitedly. Where are we having it? I asked. In front of the train station at the Étoile du Soir. She replied. I've booked the grand hall since we're inviting about 60 people, mostly Charles's colleagues. The invitations have already been sent out. Keep the first Sunday in 3 months open. Okay? Got it, I'm looking forward to it. John gave a shy smile while Jessica exchanged glances with Charles, who gave a subtle smile. I felt a warmth in my chest. Jessica is not my own child and we had our differences. But seeing family happy is always welcome. I headed to the kitchen with a spring in my step and prepared a refill of tea. Jessica soon joined attending a wedding. I've been to a few of my friends, but never imagined I'd attend as a mother, I said, lost in thought. Jessica burst into laughter. What are you thinking? You're not my real mother, why would I invite you to my wedding? She said, a smirk on her face. I was stunned. Jessica tried to explain. Seriously, you're just the housekeeper and our ATM. My real mom is the only mom for me. My previous joy faded instantly. So you're inviting your biological mom? I inferred. Of course she's my mom. Just make sure you don't show up with that ugly face of yours, it'd be embarrassing. Got it? Grinning, Jessica tried to brush it off and I held back my rising anger, responding in a low voice. She probably felt better having gotten that off her chest. Humming a tune, Jessica returned to the living room. As I arranged the pastries I'd prepared for today on a tray, I felt emptiness inside. All the hurtful words Jessica had said to me came flooding back in my mind. For over 10 years, I'd tried to get closer to Jessica, crying in private and doing my best to raise her. Yet this was her gratitude. Fine, if that's how you feel. I won't hold back anymore. Be prepared for your wedding day. Finally, Jessica's wedding day arrived. John and I, without making any special effort, headed to the venue in our everyday clothes. In the waiting room, Jessica and a woman in a black dress were already there, chatting joyfully. Jessica's face contorted in displeasure when she saw me. Didn't I tell you it would be embarrassing if you showed up? John's face turned pale, and as he tried to confront Jessica, I held him back with my hand. The lady in the dress with her striking features looked just like Jessica. She looked me up and down, scoffing. You're not John's new girl, you're his wife, huh? I owe to you for looking after both of them. Yes, why are you here? John, with a face like he had just bitten into a lemon, was met with Lisa's amused laughter. Oh, a mother can't attend her daughter's wedding. Kicking Barbara out is crazy. She's the one who's raised Jessica for over 10 years. Then Jessica glared at me resentfully. I've never considered someone like her as my mother, just so you know. Come on, it's a happy day, let's keep the peace. Lisa chimed in, laughing casually. The guests will be here soon. Yeah, sure, but because of her, my mood's ruined. Just think of her as someone to make us look good. I was beyond angry and ended up being dumbfounded by the audacity of Jessica and Lisa. Like mother, like daughter, whatever, they can enjoy their moment now. As John and I were about to leave the room, Jessica said in a sweet voice. Dad, it's okay, stay here. John gently pushed me on my back and silently stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind him. Let's wait in the lobby until it's time. Sounds good. About 30 minutes must have passed as we were chatting in the lobby. The door to the waiting room burst open, revealing Jessica in a wedding dress. Jessica ran down the hallway, burst out the front door, and after a while, she came back, pacing the hallway with an irritated look on her face. Charles, what are you up to? The ceremony is going to start soon. She ruffled her neatly styled hair and raised her voice. He still hasn't responded. Charles has never been late before. Jessica's face turned pale with anxiety. While Lisa looked on with concern nearby, the confused staff watched the scene unfold. Even as the time for the wedding ceremony passed, neither the groom nor the guests appeared. Even the suited-up hosts and cameramen began to gather and murmur in the hallway. With a somber expression, Jessica apologized to the staff. I'm sorry, I can't reach my relatives. Even my friend who I asked to man the reception isn't here. What on earth is happening? Well, you didn't invite outsiders to the wedding, did you? Jessica quickly turned to face me. That's why I told everyone you said you didn't want to invite strangers. After a few seconds of silence, Lisa rushed to me yelling. You did this. How dare you ruin my precious daughter's wedding day? Lisa. John grabbed Lisa's arm as she tried to grab me. Let go, it's Jessica's fault. After getting taken care of for over 10 years, she pulls something like this? Dad got married on his own, right? I didn't ask for it. You're the one who pushed for the marriage, weren't you? John frowned, looking incredulous. You know, right? You getting into those college prep courses and private universities was thanks to Barbara. And without taking out student loans like others. Haven't you even thanked her once? I knew she was rich when I heard she was the boss, so I pushed for the marriage. Thought she'd have money. Jessica smirked. Because that's all she is going for her. An old hag like her. I see, so you married a plain Jane just for the money? Lisa said with a mocking tone, to which John responded sternly. You're still all about the money? Spending it on another man again. Immediately, Jessica's eyes widened. What? She looked back and forth between Lisa and John, visibly shaken, and asked Lisa. Didn't you struggle because you are frequently sick and couldn't work, making it hard to get by? Mom? Now my eyes widened in surprise. Considering how Lisa yelled at me just a moment ago, it's hard to believe. Before I realized it, the staff had disappeared. Probably didn't want to get involved in a discussion about family matters. Dad. Mom said she had to cut corners to pay the rent and couldn't even afford a decent meal. So I gave her the money I got from this woman and bought her designer bags on her card so Mom could cash them in. Okay. John sighed deeply and gave Lisa a sharp look. Conning your own daughter with lies for money. Typical of you. Well, that's why we split up in the first place. Jessica's eyes grew wide in disbelief and she defended Lisa. Hold on a minute. I heard you two split because of irreconcilable differences. No, your mother took money from my salary, gave it to her lover, and then disappeared. It was only after she contacted me later that I allowed her to see you after finalizing our divorce. Upon hearing John's explanation, Jessica looked utterly shocked. No way. I'm glad I got to see you today. Lisa saved me the trouble of reaching out. Finally identified your lover too. So I am ready to sue you for emotional sufferings you caused me upon breaking up our marriage. Are you out of your mind? It has been years after we got divorced. It's way too late now. Lisa shouted back. I just snorted in amusement. You didn't know. Back during the divorce, if the other party couldn't be identified, you could go back and sue later. Jessica, stunned, approached Lisa with teary eyes. You lied to me. I took money from her thinking I was repaying a debt to Mom. Oh please, playing the good girl now, weren't you selling designer handbags and jewelry online and making a ton? As Lisa scoffed, Jessica shivered. Is that true? Jessica puffed out her cheeks, lost for words. Mom, seriously, stop making me out to be some kind of gold digger. Well, maybe she is, but it's a shame. Even if you made a rich guy fall for you, it's pointless. If you can't marry him, you were probably looking forward to living the high life forever. Lisa sighed and Jessica pursed her lips. It's not over yet. I can simply reschedule another date. I'll cover up this mess and make sure I marry him. Why would I let go of a golden goose I finally found? Jessica, clenching her fist and yelling determinedly, was interrupted by a door opening silently. A man emerged from the room and all color drained from Jessica's face. Charles. Jessica, looking pale, was met by Charles's cold gaze. I heard everything from the part where you yelled at your mom. Everything. Jessica collapsed to her knees. No way, isn't this too much? Who goes this far? It was probably your doing. As Jessica lashed out at me, John calmly spoke. I thought about it too, how to make Jessica reflect on her actions. I didn't want Charles to regret the marriage, so I thought I'd show him the truth. Charles looked down sadly and nodded. I believed that Jessica wasn't like the other women I've dated, that she wasn't after my money. Seems I was wrong. It's a pity it's not like that. It was just a surprise. A wedding surprise, right, Mom? That's right. You're not going to call off the engagement, are you? For some reason, even Lisa looked terrified and started shaking. Jessica, this is a problem. I took out a loan. Counting on your future husband's money. If the engagement's off, we're in trouble. Mom, are you out of your mind? Jessica was seething with anger. How much are you going to rely on me if you don't have money? Get a job. Don't tell me what to do. Since breaking up with my last boyfriend, you're the only one I can count on. If this guy's no good, find another man quickly and marry him. Someone rich enough to support me. I don't care about your life. I'm getting married for myself, Charles. You love me, don't you? You're going to marry me, right? As Jessica approached with bloodshot eyes. Charles stepped back, grimacing. Sorry, let's call it off. We'll discuss total cost of damages for ruining our engagement through lawyers later. Charles shook off Jessica, who was clinging to him, and fled. Jessica chased him to the parking lot but seemed to have been driven away. Returning to the entrance, she raged with a demonic look on her face. It's all your fault. I'm going to sue you for damages. Yeah, right. Ruining my darling daughter's wedding. You really dropped the ball, Barbara. Make it up to Jessica for all the hurt you caused. I had a hand in this too, so Barbara and I will cover it. Jessica, with her face beaming, was taken aback by John's next words in return. We're going to bill Jessica for the money she nicked from Barbara's purse and for the card charges she racked up without permission. Makes sense, right? From when she was 16, almost 7 years to last month. She spent about $400. 00 a month. That's $33,600. Together with the card fees, it easily tops $50,000. Yes, indeed. And of course, I'll be charging for all the nasty things you said about me, so pay up, all right? Fear was evident in Jessica's wide-open eyes as she started to tremble. There's no way I can pay that. Oh, I gave half of it to Mom, so you'll chip in, right? However, Lisa, who'd been backing up Jessica just a while ago, turned her face away in cold rejection. You're the one who said you wanted to help me. Don't make it sound like I took advantage of my own daughter. Well, that's basically what happened. You're going to pay half. Jessica's voice escalated and Lisa, looking annoyed, brushed back her long hair. It's impossible. I'm already swamped with paying debts to John and clearing my other debts. I shouldn't have come today. I've already called a lawyer, so running away won't help you now. Lisa spotting the man in a suit behind us. Gourmet. Despite her beautiful face, I was utterly shocked by Lisa, who seemed recklessly negligent and showed no apparent love for her daughter. Jessica. Being raised by a mother like that might also be a victim. John hired a private investigator and after several years found out that Lisa's lover was a bartender at a club she frequented. When John demanded the money for his emotional sufferings they caused from the bartender and Lisa, the bartender immediately paid in full. However, Lisa unsurprisingly tried to dodge responsibility, having then no savings. After being told by a lawyer that going to court would be more costly, Lisa finally agreed to make payments in installments. Of course, not trusting her, they also made an arrangement to freeze her bank account if she missed a payment. On top of the debts to John, Lisa had to cover the wedding cancellation fees with